And we are live. No, not really. It will be a little bit. All right. Thank you for joining us today at our Tuberose Healing, Natural Healing Study Group. And we are going to talk about, some poop today. Going to give you the scoop on poop.
All the latest poop.
Yeah, the scoop on poop. So we want to talk about detoxification. We'll probably have several episodes on detoxing, and today we want to highlight the star of the show, and we want to talk about the large intestine, aka colon, and this is the end part. This is the one of the big eliminative organs that we have, other than the skin. But this one handles all the waste from what we eat and eliminates it, and hopefully a nice formed stool. So we want to cover this organ, show you the anatomy of it, what it looks like when it works, when it doesn't, and how to get it back on track. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you.
Without any further ado, do you?
I'm going to share my screen with you. Ooh. Can everybody see that? Can you see my screen?
I can see.
All right. So part one of detoxification is understanding a bit about this large and very useful organ. I mean, we have people that, of course, have this cut out, and they have a colonoscopy, and they'll wear a bag. So you could live without it, but it's not very pleasant. So it's much nicer to keep this in shape. And if you notice, it has these scalloped shaped muscles, they're called kind of hostras. It looks rounded. And this is a big muscle. This area is about your colon or your large intestine is about 5 feet long. And it's tucked neatly inside your abdomen. That's pretty crazy, because it's about as tall as most people are, as big as most people are tall, approximately. People are 5 something usually. So just imagine that is in there, and it's kind of wide, and it's very muscular. So we know that, from studying the digestion, like we have that, the digestion starts with the thought of food, salivating, creating enzymes in your mouth, swallowing, getting hungry. And when you start that process, the swallowing, you start this peristaltic wave throughout the whole GI tract. And you then continue it when you chew. You're chewing, you're swallowing, you're chewing, and you're swallowing. And this starts this nice wave. If you can see my hands, it wave going all the way through like that. So you can see near the end of this, if you're putting in a new meal above, it's going to create this wave going through by you chewing, swallowing, movement, and that's going to trigger this movement of something coming out, hopefully shortly after you've eaten. So this is divided into a few spots. You'll see over here, it would be on the patient right or your left if you're looking at it. It says appendix. And there's also a little spot over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. On the inside of that where the appendix is. Appendix is a little appendage coming out that stores some fluid. But then over here, there's a little opening, and this is the sphincter where the small intestine dumps its contents when it's done into the large intestine. This is right at the cecum. So this would actually be called, this is the end of the small intestine called the ileum, and this is the beginning of the large intestine called the cecum. So this valve, or this little door, is called the ileocecal valve. And it's right by the ilium bone and the iliacus muscle, all right in this area. So that's the door. And you can see it's kind of larger right there, because that's where a lot of the absorbed, let's call it chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, or food that's been absorbed, and there's a lot of mainly fiber, water, electrolytes coming in now. It's pretty liquid. So it's going to start moving through here, and these muscles, this is all muscular. This muscle movement has to move this mass uphill, and it will be absorbing, it's going to be taking out water, dehydrating it, and, you know, taking out electrolytes, pigments. It's going to be pulling out all kinds of goodies all the way through and making it more into a formed stool as we go across. So it comes up here, up at this ascending, because it's ascending, going up, and then it goes transverse, it goes cross, transversing, transverse, up around this curve, and then down the descending. It kind of does this little loopy-de-loo into the sigmoid right before it goes into the rectum and then out of the body. Now, before I flip the screens on there, if you can go up.
Before you go, if you go up to slideshow,
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm
to
sorry.
make it bigger, just go straight up to
There we go.
slideshow. No, straight up to the top. Okay, you got it.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
See it better.
So if you look over here on the ascending colon and you see this turn right here, this curve, this is the first curve that it goes through. And this is called the hepatic flexure. And hepatic refers to liver. And you'll notice here, look at this liver right up here, this big organ right above it. So that is the liver flexure, the hepatic turn, basically. The liver turn. The turn at the liver is really what it means. So it's going across, and then this one here, it goes this up and over, this great roller coaster. If you were in a roller coaster, that'd be fun as heck. So the spleen is over here, and this one is called the splenic flexure, or the turn at the spleen. And then we go down, and then up and around the great roller coaster ride before we pooped out. Okay, here we go. Now, inside a little bit, just so you can see that. And then you see how it comes down, you know, the big tube. Into the stomach, and then all of this, the small intestine, and then it comes up around into this big colon that we're talking about.
That's a long journey. I mean, after you make it all the way through all of that, you'd be pooped out.
That's right. Literally, figuratively. So look, before I flip this again, look at the inside walls of this. This is muscular. These are muscles in here. And look at this shape, how you can see how they would squeeze. You know, it's going to squeeze this stuff out, constantly moving. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so if we don't have good movement, if we don't have good peristaltic waves, if we have a lazy colon, if we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables and fiber, we get yucky stuff in there. And it gets weird looking. I showed you that the original picture of it looking like it was. Now, parts of it will get ballooned out. Like, look at this. There's a bunch of crap sitting down in here. And then it will be, you know, have a hard time getting out, or getting, you know, gets more distended. Look at this one.
Giving birth to a politician.
Okay. Look at this one. Look how weird these turns get, and how perverted this colon gets, and how thin in some spots it gets, and weird.
So imagine trying to force a colonoscope, pushing from one end and trying to thread it through something like that.
Look at this one.
How easily it would get perforated. And then they'd say, well, we have to take you into surgery. We found something, and we have to do it. Yeah. After
we freaking put you know, ripped your bowel, made some perforations, you know, some tears, some lesions.
You got peritonitis.
Yes. I mean, this would take years of skill and technique. You get somebody new, you don't know, they're jabbing away at this stuff. It's difficult. I mean, we used to do colonics, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's hard enough to get a speculum sometimes in people here. A little speculum that's as big as your little finger, you know, sometimes just for a small enema, not to mention of the bigger speculum, just very hard to do. So look at the difference. Look at this one here on the one that says toxic colon. You'll see parts of it getting really skinny, and then other parts getting ballooned out. And then the parts that get ballooned out get inflamed. So when we get inflamed parts of this colon from lesions, from caustic foods, from not enough fiber, from these toxic wastes just sitting in here, not being swept away, we get diverticuli, which is a little bleb that's trying to put this toxic crap out of the solution. That's basically what's going on here. It's getting it out of the way. But this all gets inflamed and full of pus. And this starts to hurt. Sometimes we get inflamed, and that gets painful. People get painful feelings because diverticulitis, colitis, it's all meaning an inflamed bowel. It's raw, it's irritated, You're under stress. You're not getting the crap out. You're not eating right. You're not getting good fiber to sweep this stuff out. And it's collecting in here and burning and
And
getting
then
festering and getting toxic.
you get tumors, you get colon cancer.
Because it's toxic crap. You know, it's like you get stuff going into these lesions, into these little spots. The body wants to get this out of circulation, so it will make these little blebs of crap. And then this just festers and gets nasty and gets, you know, cancerous. Okay, so now what do we do? Look at here. Look at this stuff. This is stuff people get out with the different types of colon cleansing. I mean, look how the shape of the colon this crap took in here. You know, so new crap can't get out because the old crap is in here. Ew. All right, one of my favorite things, one of the most easiest, wonderful things to do in the world when you get toxic, when you get dehydrated, when you get a headache, when you get feeling crappy, when you don't feel right, when you get sometimes even diarrhea, when you get a pimple, when you get toxic, when you get a headache, when you get sinus pressure, yada, yada, yada. On and on.
Brain drain.
Yeah. You're on your period. You know, there's lots of reasons why. This is an enema bucket, and here's an enema bag. And basically the idea is to put it up high. It has a hose coming down. You know, you put the water, the warm, purified
Usually
water.
only one of these at a time. You don't have
Yes.
both of them.
Yes.
Unless you're really a good colon cleanser.
Patient.
Aggressive.
So anyway, I just wanted to show you. So here's the little can. So that's nice because it's open topped and you can pour more water in there. The hosing connects to the little spigot here, and then there's different size speculums. The big one is a douching one. These other ones are for enema. You see, they're very small. These are about the size of a child's little finger. It's very small. Your finger may be too big, but they're very small, so it's not any big deal, especially these little ones here. And then there's the bag itself that gets hung up high. And then it's got a little clamp that you can regulate the flow. You can slow the flow. You can stop the flow. So basically, you want to lubricate the end. This person is lying on their back. You can lie on your back. This is a person administering to it, but I was just trying to find a tasteful picture. You can get on your hands and knees. You can be on a toilet, and you're going to insert that small end of that, and then we'll just say, we'll go back here, and then let that water come in. And again, regulate the amount that comes in, and when you feel full, like you have to go to the bathroom, like you have to, you know, let go, slow that flow, take a few deep breaths and see if you can get in a little bit more. Now, the very first time you do this, or the very first fill, you may have a harder time because it may be congested at that end. So that very first one, you might want to just go to the bathroom, let that little bit out to make some room, and then put more water in. Try to hold it and let the water go around anymore, soften and loosen. Then you poop it out. And then you go back and forth, water in, poopy out, water in, poopy out. So again, the very first bagful might be kind of hit and miss. It might be, you know, it's hard to get in because you're congested down on that end of the colon, down on this, you know, you're putting it down here where it says rectum, anus, and it may be congested in here, you know, like that. Okay, so you may have a hard time getting past something like that to start with. So take your time, or it may be thin. Look at this one. It may be difficult to get up and around. So take your time, let that water get in and soften, and you want it to, you know, after you've maybe got the first bag full and you've kind of cleaned this very bottom part, the next bag full is going to get here and maybe get around. And then we like to say 3 bags, because then that last one is going to hopefully make it all the way around. And that just gives you a chance to really get some water inside of that colon. Okay, if you have a hard time getting up and down, if you have problems with your knees, if you're overweight, this is another thing that you can do at home. This is called a Kalima board. And if you have the space in your bathroom, you set this board on the toilet and on a chair. And there's a hole under it. So when you're lying on there, the speculum is right there. So you kind of ease yourself onto it. And then you just poop out right around it. And it goes down through a hole into the toilet. So that water just keeps flowing. You've got about 5 gallons in there and it flushes. So as you're pooping, you keep the water flow going, and then it just kind of flushes out as you're pooping right down into the toilet. This
And
is
then you can take it to the beach on the weekends and it doubles as a boogie board.
yeah, you're a
Or
butthole
you could
surfer.
call it a butthole surfboard, I guess.
So anyway, this is a really good tool to use at home. This is a colonic irrigation. This is the actual machine. This is one that's called an aqua cleanse. We've had several throughout the years, but what happens is you can see over here on the left of your screen is it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that's where the poop tube would be coming in, and it goes across right here, and there's actually a light. This is the tube, and you can see the poop coming out. So you can look to see how well the person digests, if there's any indigested pills. I have seen so many pills and capsules just undigested. I've seen people that don't chew, ends of pickles, peanuts whole. It's amazing. You really start thinking about chewing and digesting when you see this stuff coming through here. But anyway, it's like you turn a valve, water comes in, and then they tell you I'm feeling full, and then you turn that valve off, and then the water's still flowing, and then they're able to poop right out through this, and then more water fills, and then it drains. So the person is lying down, covered, there's a tube in the butt, and you're all covered, connected, and then it just goes right out through this machine. Very, very interesting treatment, wonderful treatment. Do you have anything to add about that, Bobby? That's it. Okay, so 10 benefits of colon cleansing. So it makes the digestive system more efficient. Now, not only cleansing just with water. I just showed you using the basic water, with a colon. Just that alone is great. But now I'm going to show you when you add some herbs and fiber. But it maintains the regularity and it prevents constipation. It kickstarts a weight loss program for sure. It definitely increases energy. It improves your concentration because you're taking toxins out. You're taking a toxic load out. You decrease your risk of colon cancer because you're cleaning it out. You're using water, you're cleaning that area out. You increase your body's absorption of minerals and vitamins because you took all of that nasty stuff that's stuck in on the lining out. Or a large portion of it.
That it helps any kind of cancer, not just colon cancer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You're helping get those acidic toxins out, so you're changing the pH of the tissues in the whole body.
Right.
And that will help increase oxygenation, which will will help the condition that creates the formation of cancer cells.
Right. So it also increases fertility because you've made the body less toxic. It maintains pH balance in the bloodstream because you're taking acidic wastes out of the body, and it improves the whole body well-being. Now, there's other things that you can do along with the water portion of this. You can take there's a lot of different herbal combinations, and these herbs, I just grabbed one. I'm not promoting just any one, but I kind of like different ones for different people. But what this has got in it are herbs that make the muscles of the colon move. Sometimes they'll be, what would you say, slightly cathartic. They make caustic. They make you, like they could give you
water into your intestines and give you runny poop or explosive poop.
Or a little cramping. Sometimes you'll see herbs like senna or cascara sagrada. Those are some of them. Aloe. Those are very cathartic type herbs that move that colon. That colon muscles, those muscles are going to be lazy and they're not going to be moving very well. So part of getting the function back is restoring the function of these muscles because they're lazy, they're weak. They haven't been used to digesting and moving maybe fiber or enough through it. So
and they have Imodium in them, a lot of these that you can take a colon from a cadaver and put Imodium on it and it'll start contracting.
Yep.
Really powerful.
So these different herbs will contain these combinations will contain different herbs that move the muscle of the colon. A lot of them will also contain different fibers. So one of the best ones still is whole psyllium husks. Now, you got to be careful when you start taking fiber if you're not used to it. I wouldn't even, well, I would not recommend what they say on the label just because that most people's colons aren't used to it. I would go way less, something like an eighth or a quarter of a teaspoon in water. I would start with that once a day, and then maybe twice a day, and then 3 times. And if you're doing fine with taking like a quarter of a teaspoon, then you can work it on up. But I have seen too many people too often will take even like a teaspoon and they just bind themselves up. It plugs them up because one, they're dehydrated, they're already toxic, and they don't drink enough water with this. So this is just going to be like flushing a diaper down a toilet, putting up some of paper towels down the toilet. It is, you know, it's not going to be a good thing. But this stuff is a good thing. And then there are other fibers. There's acacia fiber. There's lots of different, there's oat bran fiber. There's lots of them. I think a blend of both soluble and insoluble is good. And you just have to kind of work it. I think there may be one, you know, the different combinations are usually better for different people because you eat different things. If you eat beans and you know, and can handle it, then great. If somebody can't, then they're not getting that fiber and they need something else. So it's kind of individual, but I wanted just to bring your attention to when you're cleaning your colon, you need something that moves the muscles and that's going to stimulate the colon, and then you need some fiber to move it through. So it's kind of like when you're cleaning the counter, you might have to put some Comet down and then you have a rag and a paper towel to wipe it up. So it's kind of like, you know, the Comet, the rag to clean that up. And then you have the water with the colon cleansing to dilute that out and to absorb all that and to wash it off. So psyllium, bentonite, now you can add the different clays. A lot of times some of these formulas will have clay in them, and clay is very absorptive. It absorbs or adsorbs so many things. So you can kind of think about a piece of clay. It has a lot of charge, it has a lot of minerals, and then it's able to draw toxins into it, to it. Here's a picture of a colon, and it is also very reflexive. So when you are putting water in it, you are stimulating, some of these you can probably see them better than others, you are stimulating the reflexes just like on your hands and feet and ears. So the water's coming in, and it's stimulating these from the inside out. So look at here down at the very bottom, you know, the rectum. You're stimulating the male and female genitals and the prostate and the bladder. So, and testes. So this is very, very important for men who have prostate conditions or have ED to do colon cleansing, because one, this part of the colon here is probably ballooned out and it's probably leaking and toxic, and the prostate is sitting right underneath here, and this actually kind of curls around it. So by cleaning this out, you are removing a bunch of toxic mess right next to the prostate gland, and pressure, because like I said, this was, you saw that picture earlier where this is all big and ballooned out, and it's putting pressure and it's leaking toxins right there at that poor little prostate.
Yeah, where you showed the picture of the diverticuli, the little
Yep.
blebs, when those rupture and leak
Yep.
toxins into the body, like in the pelvic area, for instance, that can contribute to prostate enlargement, prostate cancer, things like that.
And endometriosis for a woman,
Right.
because that's right there around the uterus. This end part of the colon is around the prostate and around the uterus. So,
Right around it.
and if you're trying to carry a baby and get pregnant, it would be so good to clean this out because the uterus is like right in here.
And then think of during menses, if you have a distended sigmoid colon wrapping around a swollen uterus, you're going to have a lot of cramping and,
Yep.
and pain, discomfort. And it's going to tip the uterus, possibly.
Yeah. So look at here. Some of these you can see a little bit more different organs that can be reflexed, you know, and then the right side of the colon affects the right side of the body, left side, the left side of the body. And that's it, the end. Oh, okay, one more thing. This is really cute. Pardon my humor. This is soap. This is butthole soap. I just thought that was kind of cute. That's what we're talking about, the colon. So
This is the end.
So just making sure that the very first part of detoxification, you're addressing the colon, you're thinking about the colon, you're thinking about pooping. You know, we need to eat 3 times a day. We need to nourish ourselves with food. We need to poop at least one good time, depending on what you eat. You should poop after every meal. Depends on what the meal is. You know, it's like if you have a blender drink that doesn't have any fiber in it, you may not poop after that. But after you've chewed and swallowed and ate, that's why when you eat, you're chewing and you're swallowing, and that makes that wave go all the way through the digestive tract. So you're chewing and you're swallowing, and that wave just keeps moving through, and then it makes that colon do like that. Those muscles in there actually move in that manner, so that you're able to eliminate. It's a beautifully designed process, but we have to understand how it works. It's not hard to do colon cleansing. In fact, it's an amazing treatment. It helps keep you youthful and young by getting rid of toxins in the system. Mae West used to do enemas. I remember reading it. So, you know, people have done it for beauty treatment as well as for cleansing effects. There's been several books written. One of my favorites is by Norman Walker. What was the name of it? Bowel, oh gosh, I was going to put up, but I forgot it. Bowel cleansing and tissue toxicity. Is that the name of it?
I think it's just Colon Health, but
Maybe.
you're thinking of Jensen's book.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Both of those are really good early books on colon cleansing. So, do you have anything to add on that, Bobby?
Not really. You covered most of it. It's not a real pleasant topic to discuss, but if you've never done any colon cleansing, once you do, it's amazing how different you feel. And it really takes the dread away from doing that, because you want to feel good, and you want to feel that feeling that you get after your head clears, you think better. And
now that should be like the very first signs of sickness. What's called sickness, respiratory complaints. You know, you feel a scratchy throat, itchy nose, you start to sneeze, or maybe you get watery eyes. That would be one of the first things you do, is to start getting rid of the toxins in your system. Maybe a quick dose of colloidal silver on your way to doing an enema. So what do you use? I like just plain purified water, warm water. That's probably it to start with. I don't want to complicate it. There's lots of things that you can do. If you do anything, if you have the urge to put anything in at all, maybe just a splash of apple cider vinegar, because you want that area acid. You want it acidic. That organ is acidic. So you don't want to put soap in it. You would either just plain water or just a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Now, one more thing. That would be one of my first go-tos with any time a child starts to get sick. They start pulling on their ears, they're a little fever, they're teething, they just start complaining, they get whiny. Because kids, you're establishing their digestive system, and they're, you know, for years, they're learning to eat, they're learning to digest, and it's always going to foul up because they're not going to be eating good. They're going to be eating too much wheat, too much sugar, too much dairy, too much fiberless food. And that's a given. That's what makes people sick. It's not so much a microbe. The microbe, you know, when we like to entertain the terrain system, not the germ theory, you know, the terrain getting in a bad state, and then the microorganisms going there to help clean it up. So by keeping the body clean, you can avoid having any toxicity and any microbial invasion. So I think we're pretty good with that. I don't know. Do you have
so
anything?
People, when they, if you talk about doing colon cleansing and if they object, you know, like, oh, I couldn't do that. Like, I sometimes say, well, people have a hard time putting water in their butt, but they put shit in their mouth every day with all the crap they eat. So, you know, you have to make up for this abnormal, unnatural stuff we've been putting in our butt, especially the gluten. When you can't break down gluten, it gets like wallpaper paste or paper mache in your intestines, and then it just packs in the walls of the colon. This can take months to break down all this stuff that builds up like scale in a pipe. And that's why you have to have the enzymes in these herbs to break this stuff down. And you have to keep the colon hydrated so that it softens all this, because it doesn't just break off and you have to, it's like stripping paint from a piece of furniture. You put the stripper on it, you got to let it bubble up. And then you take your putty knife and you steel wool and you scrape it all off and you put some more on. And you just keep doing that. And you layer upon layer, the stuff starts sloughing off and breaking loose as like strings of mucus. Then you'll start to see parasites and stuff coming out a lot of times because the parasites are there to consume the toxic condition. They're nature scavengers, and they're there because of the condition. So a lot of times people start passing, you can see visible worms and stuff, but as you remove what they're living on, there's nothing for them to exist on, so they're not a problem. But this is, prime territory for a lot of intestinal parasites. And then they're robbing your nutrition, and then their waste is poison to your body that you're reabsorbing and stuff. So if you change the environment, you get rid of a lot of the parasites. And living in the South, where you got parasites all the time, especially if you have animals, but just being in the South, in the warm, moist environment, there's going to be a lot of different critters that are taking advantage of our body as a host.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a full-time job keeping that in check. But think about what little organisms that good friendly bacteria that should be living in the colon. We have pounds and pounds of bacteria that are in our intestinal tract, including the colon. So you have to have these friendly bacteria that break down and help scavenge and further the digestive process, and it acts as a first line of defense of our immunity because this is a portal into the body. The whole digestive tract from the mouth to the anus is a elongated donut, if you will. It's a long tube that even though it's within your body, it's considered exterior to the body because it's still that hole that's going through the body. Once you cross through the walls of that tube, then you're inside the body. And so there's some things we want in the body. That's why we have our digestive tract in the small intestine. There's things we don't want in the body that get excreted into the sewer of the body, the colon. And your lymphatic system drains it back into the bloodstream, and then further gets broken down and excreted into the liver and the bile, and then into the intestinal tract, and it comes out as waste. So we want to keep that pathway opened up and hydrated, and don't plug it up with things like gluten, which makes everything back up. Now, when your colon can't eliminate properly, the toxins that are supposed to be being eliminated back up and pollute the temple. They go into the kidneys first and overload the kidneys. Body's trying to double its work, and the kidneys get these toxins out. What the kidneys can't remove go to the lungs, and then you start
Coughing
and hacking up all this junk in your lungs, and then you get, in the really extreme cases, your breath smells like shit, like feces, and it's really offensive. But that's because it's back up. The emergency vicarious eliminative system is trying to cover for it. Now, what your lungs can't get rid of will then come out through your skin. Your skin is the largest eliminative organ in the body, and it'll create new pathways for new rectums, if you will, and you'll get openings that just open and stuff will just start draining out. It's really gross. Or you'll get boils, and you'll get all these encapsulations, cysts and tumors and things, where the body is encapsulating these toxins to try to keep it out of the circulation of the rest of the body. So we want to help open up all the eliminative channels in the body. And then you got to start with the colon. If you're going to do liver cleansing, you got to have the colon working first, because the liver dumps its load into the large intestine. And then if that is plugged up, then you're going to just reabsorb all those toxins that you excreted out of the liver back into the body, into the blood. It's going to circulate around, and you're going to get sicker and sicker. So there's a way to do this, and we like to start with the colon, get the colon rolling. And there's ways of doing that gracefully. We start to hydrate the body, start to alkalize the body, and build up your alkaline minerals and juicing and things like that. And that makes it a lot more comfortable. You don't go into a cleansing crisis, because all these toxins are acidic, and when the body starts dumping out of the tissues into the blood, it's like, oh, there's an open pathway now, we can start cleansing. This is circulating through your body, and you can feel really bad. So if you get your alkaline minerals built up, those neutralize those acids, the pH, and then you don't have that cleansing crisis
Right.
to go through. So there's ways of making it more enjoyable or graceful of a process. But yeah, once you start experiencing the benefits of that, it's not such a horrific thought and concept, but it just makes sense. Animals in nature cleanse their colon.
Yep.
Some animals. Anyways.
So cleansing the colon, that's the very first stage that we like to talk about in detoxification. So today was detoxification part 1, understanding how important the colon is and beginning to clean and cleanse that organ out. And then, like Bobby said, then we can get into doing liver, kidney, skin. I mean, you could be doing something simultaneously, but this is the very first step. And it's something that's necessary all the time. You don't have to get into doing a big colon cleanse to just make yourself feel better. You can always do a spot enema if you feel a little toxic, a little under the weather, you're not eliminating. 1 or 2 quick rinses with the enema is amazing for getting yourself back on track. That is one of those, I just can't say it enough, amazing treatments that I wish everybody knew about and how to do. And it's very important to teach children how to do that when they're off and they're growing up, not make a big deal about it. And then they just instantly feel better. And then they're back to being, a kid, being able to play and not being sick, not being stuck in bed, feeling crappy.
When we were working with the real sickos, people that were medical throwaways and may not make it around the next turn, first thing we do is start working on the colon. You got to get the sewer opened up and start detoxing them. And there's another thing that's important too. This is very affordable. You can pay $60 to $100 per treatment for a colonic by a colon therapist if you want, but you can in home with a enema bag or a bucket or whatever, you can do your own treatments. If you do them right, you can get just as much benefit. You learn to fill with the water, and then you turn over, and then you massage the colon with the water in it, and you feel it, and you hear it sloshing around, and you're loosening the matter off the walls of the colon and helping speed up the process, just like you would do if you were a colon therapist and you're working somebody's colon like that while you're filling and emptying. But you don't want to use tap water to fill your enema bag, because it's got chlorine and probably fluoride in it, and we don't want to kill these friendly bacteria that we want in the large intestine. Chlorine is put in water to kill bacteria, so it'll kill all the beneficial bacteria in your gut when you drink it or use it for an enema. So you want to get purified water. Just buy some bottles of distilled water if you don't have a purifier yourself. And then you want to heat it to body temperature. It makes it a little less shocking when you introduce it into the body. But
Yes, you want it body temperature warm so that your colon will not spasm up like, oh.
and then make the environment nice. Maybe burn some incense and some nice relaxing music on. Put some towels or something down on the floor so it's not as hard. And then we found the easiest way to do your enemas on your hands and knees, because you want to help using gravity to get the water past the rectum into the colon. If you do it sitting up, a lot of people try to do it sitting up on the toilet, but now you're fighting gravity and the water's going up into the rectum, but then it can't get through the rest of the colon. But if you're inverted, you get your shoulders down and your butt in the air. Now the water is going to go in, it's going to go downhill into the colon, and you can feel it filling, and it's much more effective. So little tricks like that. Once you get all the water in, you close the valve, take the speculum out, and then flip on your back, as I mentioned, and you'll start massaging, and you'll hear the water, and you'll feel it sloshing around, especially where it's uncomfortable. It might be tender, you feel pressure there. That's where it needs more work. And then to the really seasoned enema specialist, you can put water in and then bounce on the rebounder gently. And you really agitate and really, my son Noah discovered that when he was a kid. He used to do it, and then he'd run to the bathroom. So, but then he was back on the street playing with his kids, his friends, and he wasn't sick in bed. So he learned to, when he's starting to feel symptomatic, he'd say, "Can I do an enema? I don't feel good." And he'd go and do his own enema because he knew how much better he'd feel. So, and how it's introduced is important too. You want to make it especially with kids, you don't want to make it a traumatic experience.
Exactly. Don't make any big deal about it.
Right. Yeah. And then just explain what you're doing and, how it's going to help. And it's usually fine. So.
All right.
We know how to have fun.
So, on that note, happy colon cleansing. And then visit us on the Tuberose Healing. Check out more of our episodes that we put on, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Namaste.
Namaste.